Tonight, the U.S. weighing new military strikes on Iran, the warning from the president, and the response from the regime.
Plus, the fallout from two deadly immigration standoffs is growing, with anti-ICE protests spreading across the nation, the clarion call from pastors and their message for believers.
And hoop dreams denied.
It didn't benefit us in the way that we would have been able to continue, but it did benefit us in showing the world that this was really the good thing to do.
A basketball team redefining what it means to be a winner.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The Middle East and Washington on edge tonight as President Trump considers whether to pull the trigger on Iran. Good evening, I'm Jenna Browder.
And from our Washington News Bureau, I'm John Jessup. Well, the risk of a direct confrontation between the United States and Iran is rising. Tonight, the president awaits word, or the Pentagon rather, awaits word from the president as a massive armada of American firepower moves toward the Islamic Republic. While Trump has not yet authorized an attack, he has given the regime two demands: make a deal to curb its nuclear program and stop killing protesters in the streets.
Iran says it's open to talks, but warns it will retaliate against any American strike. For more on the escalating pressure and what could come next, let's bring in our panel. We have senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright and CBN's Chuck Holton. Gentlemen, good to have you with us this evening. Kelly, what are you hearing tonight about what President Trump's next moves could be?
So, Jenna, the president is weighing his military options in Iran. He's always stated very publicly that that is something he will continue to do, keep all of his military options on the table. And with that, he will go ahead and move forward with having that, what he says, armada flotilla of U.S. troops in the Persian Gulf area in the Middle East near Iran. The president telling reporters that today, that large armada is there to float somewhere, so they might as well float there. Also, there are published reports in terms of his military options that he may consider putting U.S. troops on the ground to actually conduct strikes against nuclear facilities in Iran. So we wait and see what will happen as the pressure mounts on the possible tensions that could erupt into an attack on Iran.
Chuck, you're in the region in neighboring Syria. The White House appears to be taking a similar approach to Iran as it did with Venezuela, amassing forces off the coast for months to pressure Nicolas Maduro. If the United States strikes, do you think the regime change in Iran is necessarily the goal there?
Well, it would have to be. I mean, nothing's going to change there unless the regime actually does fall. And what we're hearing from the Kurds that we talk to here in Syria is that they have many friends and family that are Kurds in Iran right now. And the word that's coming out of Iran is that the killings have not stopped. If anything, they've ramped up. We've heard some people say that the Iranian government has killed more of its own citizens in a weekend than have died in Gaza in 2 years. And so the killings are just unbelievable there now. They're telling us they're living in fear. They're afraid to even go to the hospital for routine medical care because the Asaish, or the secret police, are going through the hospitals and collecting everybody up, taking them outside and executing them as terrorists. So things are not looking good there. To add to that, you have the terrible economy and the lack of water in Tehran and all those sorts of things, which are basically not going to get better as long as the regime is in power.
Yeah, Kelly, the White House still says diplomacy is on the table even as it moves military assets to the region. What's the balance here, Kelly, and how close do you think we are to a decision point?
Well, first, the balance is very delicate. And despite the tough talk and the show of U.S. military might, the U.S. and Iran are talking about a possible nuclear deal, but the negotiations are very tense. President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is urging Iran to bring a full stop to its uranium enrichment program and to even end its continued support, get this, for its proxy groups, Hezbollah and Hamas. They continue to fund them. Iran's foreign minister says Iran is ready to discuss nuclear programs but adds its military forces stand at the ready to respond to any attack by the United States, I should say. So the threat of war now lingers in the air amid these tense negotiations, while the Iranian people, as Chuck pointed out, are fighting for their very lives against this tyrannical, brutal regime, continue to conduct a brutal attack on its own people who have been protesting against the regime, demanding their freedom.
Chuck, switching gears to Syria, where the government announced a ceasefire deal with the Kurdish forces after ongoing battles between the two sides. Chuck, do you see this agreement holding do you see this agreement holding?
Well, they've actually had a ceasefire for the last few days, almost all week this week, and every day this week there have been clashes between Jelani's forces and the Kurds. This new agreement in Damascus today is a little more comprehensive, and it actually charts a course for the Kurds to come under the control of al-Shara and his forces without giving up their autonomy, or at least not all of it. Now, talking to the Kurds in Kamishli tonight, actually I ran into the former Rojava defense minister at dinner and asked him what he thought of it, and he said, I don't really know what to think yet, because we know we can't trust al-Jelani. Any agreement we've had with him in the past, he has broken. And so we really trust him about as far as we can throw him now, and so we'll have to see. But part of this agreement says that Jelani can send his agents or his officials into Kurdish-held areas to take up government positions, and they can take over the airport and the border crossings and things like that. That does not give the Kurds much sense of confidence, because many of the Kurds that are here in Kamishli have been displaced now 5 different times by Jelani's forces, as they have pushed them out of other areas like Afrin and Idlib, and coming all the way across to Raqqa and Tabqa, and now in Kamishli.
All right. CBN's senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright and CBN's Chuck Holton, thank you so much for your insights tonight.
Coming up, amid the tension in Minneapolis, how is the church responding? What Christian leaders are saying when we return. Welcome back. Anti-ICE sentiment is growing across the nation after a pair of deadly confrontations between immigration officials and protesters.
What's being dubbed the ICE out protests have been taking place in cities across the country today, calling on people to strike from work, school, and even shopping. Meanwhile, the fallout from that Minnesota church protest continues. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested for his role in the event. Lemon was on hand when anti-ICE protesters disrupted services at a Baptist church. Lemon's attorney says they will fight the charges vigorously in court. Well, joining us now is Joshua Giles, an apostle who leads Kingdom Embassy Worship Center in Minneapolis, where he's been actively serving and praying with the community during these recent events.
And also with us, Justin Gibney, president of the AND campaign. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have you with us. Joshua, let's start with you if we could. So you've been on the ground there praying with the people in the community during what's been a very tense time for Minneapolis. What are you hearing, Joshua, from people there, and what are some of the things they're asking for most?
Yeah, I've been on the grounds in the city, and just going throughout. And to be honest with you, it looks like a bit of a war zone to me, with all of the clashing and, of course, military tanks that are there and so many other things. But what I'm hearing from the people is a deep cry in them for justice. They want normalcy. They want things to go back to what they were. And for me as a leader on the ground, the one thing that I'm learning to do is what Jesus would do in the situation, is to show compassion. When people are mourning, we mourn. We definitely mourn the loss of life that's been happening in Minneapolis. And then we can speak up in a peaceful way, but also stand against violence that's there. So that's what I'm hearing on the ground. People don't want things to continue the way that they've been going, and they want peace.
Joshua, while we have you, we want to talk about the larger context, not just the protests, but the immigration raids that are taking place. We've seen protests, fear, and anger following these deadly encounters. Can you talk about how the church is showing up beyond statements, but in practical, visible ways, and how the community is responding to that spiritual presence?
Yeah, that's a great question. Many churches are sending teams out, and we're going out throughout the city. We're there on the streets of where the tragedies have occurred, and we're being a point of prayer for people that are there. And not only that, we're having conversation and just listening to the hearts of people. And I think that's one of the best things that we can do as the church is to pray, but then also to hear the perspective that others have, and then to meet them at a point of commonality. And that's what the church has been doing in Minneapolis. And really, for us, we think it's an opportunity for revival in the midst of all of the chaos that's going on.
Yeah. What's been the response from some of the people there?
The people are understanding and they're open. I think once they see that we are not just in our own corners and standing against them, but we understand, then the people's hearts are very open and they're in agreement with the prayer. They're in agreement with us also wanting justice. We want justice in our community. We also want justice in government, and we want the clashing to stop as well. And that's a point that we have in common, and they're receptive of that.
Justin, let's go ahead and bring you in. Federal officials say mistakes were made, but they're also stressing law and order. You were posting about this, Justin. Talk about how Christians can balance, both wanting this accountability that Joshua was talking about and peace, but also at the same time rejecting, violence, chaos, and a lot of the tension that we're seeing on the streets.
Yeah, well, the first thing I think we have to understand from a biblical point of view is that justice and order go together. And while we see an administration that had a mandate when it came to immigration to bring about order, because we're not seeing the justice there and the due process, we don't see order either. We see just a different kind of disorder. And so I think for Christians, the number one thing we should be thinking about right now is how do we protect people? What I'm understanding for some of the people on the ground in the Twin Cities is that not only were people who might have had criminal backgrounds being subject to this treatment, but it's actually people who were refugees, legal refugees, who were escaping, bad situations from where they were from. Now they come here, have been promised to be protected, and are once again in a situation where they are unprotected. And so that's something that I think deserves a serious rebuke from the church. So the biggest question we should be asking is how can we protect people right now and make sure that everybody is being treated justly, and then we can get to order.
You talk about your group is built to educate and organize Christians for civic and cultural engagement. I want to ask you about this perception or this feeling from some immigrant and minority communities who say they feel targeted or maybe even forgotten. What role can local churches play in offering safety, dignity, and hope, regardless maybe of someone's legal status?
Yeah, I think one thing is opening the door. I know that on opening your doors, but I know that one thing that some Christians are doing in Minneapolis are actually helping with funding to get legal representation, again, for people who have gone through the process in the right way and still are being harassed. And so when we can, we've seen people out there marching, protesting, and just representing people who may not feel like they have a voice right now, finding ways to make sure they have representation, to speak up for them, and to speak to our government representatives to say, hey, something needs to change. This is unacceptable. And I think we see some of that because even with the administration, we're seeing a pivot in how, at least in the rhetoric, and how they're addressing this.
Yeah, Tom Homan is definitely a sea change for sure in the situation in Minneapolis. All right, Apostle Joshua Giles with Kingdom Embassy Church in Minnesota and Justin Gibney, president of the AND campaign. Thank you both. Still ahead, they made history on the court, then did something no one expected. How one high school team sparked a national debate about the true meaning of victory. Welcome back. Well, from politics to sports, culture today often pushes the idea of winning at all costs.
It was about this time last year that one high school girls basketball team proved that's not always true. I traveled to Oklahoma to learn more about the meaning of true winning. Grit, grind, and heart.
Ingredients that led the Lady Griffins varsity team to clinch their first championship earlier this year. Days later, they'd make history again.
Usually in the world of high school sports, it's an exceptional display of athleticism that catches the public attention. Last season on this very court, it was an unusual display of good sportsmanship that drew national headlines.
I just needed to know in my heart for certain that we were the champions so that I could sleep that night.
After reviewing the game video and twice tallying the score, Coach Brendan King confirmed his team lost by 1 point. A scorekeeping mix-up gave the Griffins a 1-point advantage and the district trophy. For Coach King, that was the first hard pill. The next, breaking the news to his players.
And the girls' ears immediately kind of perked up. Like, we don't meet on a Sunday, and they said something has to be going on.
I thought somebody died.
My first thought was like Ellie said, who died, or like somebody got hurt really bad or something.
When Coach King told them about the loss, all the players agreed to challenge the outcome.
Of course there's hesitation, there's grief, whatever, but we had played the game, and like there's nothing that could take away that hard work and all of our like teamwork and all of that. But we never had one in the first place, if that makes sense. So there was like a coming to terms with, oh, we didn't win, but there was never like, oh, but we can still keep the trophy, because like, why would we do that?
Their reasoning? Being true to their emotions while also answering to a higher call.
It didn't benefit us in the way that we would have been able to continue, but it did benefit us in showing the world that this was really the good thing to do and the thing that glorifies God most.
They've also learned to find humor in the heartbreak.
I also feel like the trophy just like wouldn't have been valuable if every time we saw it sitting on the shelf, we thought, oh wait, we actually lost that game.
Breaking its own rules, the state governing board for high school athletics granted their appeal. Just hours after the girls' decision, Coach King and his wife delivered the trophy to the opposing team.
Showed us, there are still good people in this world.
The story got picked up by CBS, their good deeds striking a chord covered by media around the world.
It's kind of like a running joke around our student body. It's like, oh, another day, another interview.
So what makes a team decide a win isn't a win, but in this case, an actual loss? Well, to get a better understanding, you'd have to come here, where learning for the girls isn't just purely academic, it's also about virtue.
This is the Academy of Classical Christian Studies in downtown Oklahoma City, where students start and end the day in prayer. Walking the halls, it looks and sounds like your typical school. Yet the Academy represents a growing movement called Classical Christian Education, a challenging 3-stage curriculum where the Bible, along with the traditions of ancient Greece and Rome, are used to teach and transform kids by learning about the world and its creator. The method is catching on.
Parents know what their calling is and their duty towards their children, and they see classical and Christian education as among the most effective partnerships, giving them memory, helping them be practiced in virtue, and baptizing their imagination into something true, good, beautiful, and eternal.
There is a part of me that wasn't surprised.
Casey and Sarah Shutt have 2 sons enrolled at the Academy, and their daughter Cora, now a freshman in college, played ball as a Lady Griffin last season.
I mean, our daughter can kind of look back and tell us now that she's in college, like, these are the things I really appreciated. I'm thankful for this education, and that is a blessing as a parent.
While reports show these students outperform their peers in public and private schools, educators say this curriculum isn't designed simply to prepare students for college. It's to train them to be kingdom-minded.
It gives them kind of a higher target in life. Virtue is something that the school speaks of quite a bit.
Bringing lessons learned at home and in the classroom onto the basketball court, the team's fan base has grown.
I got to ask you, what's it been like for you to witness the response to the story?
I'm thankful the story's out there because I hope it's encouraging to other coaches or other teams out there that there's so many bigger life lessons than just wins and losses. Again, I never thought it would get to this point. Multiple social media messages that had come my way. Letters started to show up to the school, check donations just to the girls' basketball program.
We asked why they think the story's gone viral.
A culture whose favorite hashtag is winning needed a news story of what true winning is.
I think it resonates that, yeah, that's the right thing to do. And maybe if this happens in this little high school setting, maybe there's hope beyond in the political realm or in the business world or in all these other spheres of life.
For these students, it's about their family, friends, and mentors.
Growing up in the academy has given me almost like a golden standard of community that I want to hold to, like a standard that I will want to always work up to, or maybe even improve on.
Win or lose, setting an example for us all.
So ahead, a group of kids turn a snowy day into an icy adventure.
Well, finally tonight, millions of Americans are bracing for yet another winter storm. This one, though, expected to hit our friends in North Carolina and Virginia.
Well, yeah, it comes just days after the last storm swept through the parts of the South, and while it caused plenty of problems, these kids in Memphis, Tennessee made the most of the ice and snow, turning it into their very own igloo. The city avoided the worst of the storm, but there was still enough ice piled up in one driveway for the kids to get creative and build something fun.
Those ice blocks are pretty technical. Like, look at how perfectly shaped they are.
I was going to say they look like bricks.
I'm very, very impressed.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun.
They must play Legos as well. Like, they're so good.
You know what's interesting? Kids are so immune to the elements. Like, they didn't look cold or, I don't know.
Thanks for watching.
Have a good night.